Yo, what's up, y'all? Welcome back to undergroundwellness.com. Today we're talking about gluten sensitivity, celiac disease, and 3 ways that gluten can attack your brain. Do you ever find that when you eat grains, you get tired, lethargic, you feel like an inability to focus, or maybe even got some bloating going on? Or do you ever find that when you completely remove grains from your diet that you feel a whole lot better? Well, those are really strong signs that you've got some gluten sensitivity going on. Now let's differentiate, because a lot of people get these confused, the difference between gluten sensitivity and celiac. So gluten sensitivity is an exaggerated immune response to the consumption of gluten, which causes inflammation throughout the body and can possibly trigger autoimmunity, in which your immune system attacks and destroys your own tissues around your body as well as in your brain. Celiac kind of falls underneath the gluten sensitivity umbrella. Celiac is like an extreme, severe immune reaction to the consumption of gluten that causes autoimmune destruction of the gastrointestinal tract specifically. Now, I've known a lot of people who have health challenges, and so, me being the health guy that I am, I'll suggest, hey, maybe this is a gluten sensitivity issue. And typically they'll say to me, my doctor checked me for that, and I turned out fine, so I'm good. And I go, well, what did the doctor check you for? Well, the doctor checked me for celiac. Check this out. This is like the celiac, or the common, we'll say, celiac testing flow. First of all, someone's going to have symptoms and they're going to go to their doctor. But the thing is that with celiac, people just tend to think gastrointestinal tract. I should probably have some intestinal symptoms going on. Well, here's the thing. Only 1 out of 8 people who have celiac actually have symptoms in their gut. The other 7 out of 8 have something called extra-intestinal manifestations. So this celiac, or this gluten sensitivity, can show itself in your thyroid, or in your joints, or in your muscle tissues, or many other places in the body outside of the gut. So let's say you go to the doctors because you've got your symptoms, and the doctor says, hey, let's run a blood test for antibodies to see if your immune system is going after 3 things. Endomysium. Endomysium is a tissue in your gut. Transglutaminase, we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Transglutaminase is an enzyme that helps with the binding together of proteins as well as with the digestion of wheat. And we also look for, or I should say the doctor also looks for, antibodies to gliadin. Gliadin is the protein fraction of gluten that a lot of people have immune reactions to. So they say, hey, we're running this antibody test. We want to see if your immune system is fighting this tissue, this enzyme, or this protein fraction. And let's say 1 or more of them come up positive. So the doctor says, hey, let's move along and let's run a biopsy. So this is really uncomfortable. They put this thing down your throat and it goes all the way down to your intestines, and they snag a piece of your intestines. And here's what they're looking for. Now in your intestines, it kind of looks like this. Okay, my fingers are villi, and those villi are there to help you to absorb your nutrients, to pull those babies in. Now, what the doctor is looking for a positive celiac biopsy is, we'll say, 80% destruction of those villi. So what I mean by that is that if you've got inflammation going on in the gut, it slowly starts to wear down those villi, and you get something called atrophy. And we'll say when it gets here, like 80% destruction, that is going to give you a positive celiac result. You've got celiac. But however, what if it's 75%? Or what if it's 70%? What if it's on its way to 80%, but it just hasn't gotten there yet? The doctor says, well, you don't have enough villus atrophy to have celiac disease yet. So keep on consuming your gluten. And what that means is like, yo, it just hasn't gotten far enough along. There's a problem. It's just not far enough along for a celiac diagnosis. We have an issue here. That doesn't make any sense. Let's just wait for it to get bad enough, right? So here's the thing. The patient goes home and says, well, I don't have celiac. Even though I have antibodies to these deals here, I can just keep on eating gluten because I don't have celiac. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So check this out. There was an article that came out not too long ago called The Gluten Syndrome, a Neurological Disease, that showed that gluten sensitivity causes more destruction to the brain and to the nervous system than any other tissue of the body, including the intestinal tract. Intestinal tract, celiac, intestinal tract, it's outside of there. affecting the brain and the nervous system. So I'm going to show you 3 ways that gluten is attacking your brain. Number 1 is cross-reactivity. Cross-reactivity, what I like to call, is mistaken identity. So you consume gluten, right? Your body breaks it down, and the protein structure of gluten is what your body's gonna go, if you're gluten sensitive, your body says, whoa, we don't want this. Let's go ahead and fight it off. So immune system tags that protein structure so your immune system can go ahead and destroy it. However, what if that gluten protein structure, we'll say it looks like this, looks exactly like your brain and your nervous system protein structure. They look very similar, if not the same. The immune system says, well, we're tagging this one. Well, let's go ahead and tag this one as well. So it's a case of mistaken identity. You consume gluten, it tags it, and it says, hey, let's also tag your brain tissue, and now you've got an autoimmune problem. It also triggers reactivity to the transglutaminases. Now, we talked about transglutaminase earlier in the celiac testing section. Transglutaminase 2 is the enzyme in the gut. And so you eat gluten and your body's going to attack that enzyme in the gut, which causes inflammation in the gut, which can cause malabsorption of the nutrients that you take in through food, as well as other gastrointestinal problems. Number 2 right here is going to be TG3, transglutaminase 3. That is the enzyme in your skin. So you consume gluten, you're going to get reactivity to TG3 in your skin, and that can cause skin disorders. So a lot of people out there with skin disorders that are directly linked with gluten sensitivity. TG6, this is the big one, this is one that was recently found, is the enzyme in your brain. You eat gluten, the body starts to attack that TG6, starts to destroy the brain as well as the nervous system. Number 3, blood-brain barrier. We've talked about your gut in the past, how your gut has that intestinal barrier and it just allows the good nutrients through but keeps the bad stuff out. The brain has the same thing. It's called the blood-brain barrier. It's this thin film that's very selective that just allows good things in. So for example, like precursors to neurotransmitters. It wants to let those in, but it also wants to keep like pathogens and bugs out. However, gluten causes the breakdown of the blood-brain barrier, allowing more permeability of that barrier, which lets pathogens in, causing inflammation and problems with the brain. So those, or I should say, that is what's going on when people consume gluten. Remember, it's not an intestinal issue all the time. It can manifest itself many other places in your body, including the brain. So I know you're probably wondering, well, if the celiac test isn't good enough, then what test should I take? Well, I'm gonna put a link right down there to a show that I did with Dr. Tom O'Brien, who is the man when it comes to gluten. We talk all about gluten sensitivity testing, the real testing, and also next Monday, I wanted to put up 5 videos this week, but I'm hosting this event tomorrow and Saturday, so I'm gonna be really busy. But on Monday, I'm gonna come back with a video all about real, legit gluten sensitivity testing. Don't forget, check out this book, Why Isn't My Brain Working, by Dr. Kharrazian. He's the man. Also go to darksideoffatloss.com and check out my ebook, The Dark Side of Fat Loss. It's all about how all this functional medicine stuff, digestion, detoxification, the immune system, hormones, as well as your diet and exercise, what they have to do with fat loss, broken down in like really easy to understand language that people think is actually pretty funny at the same time. So check that out, darksideoffatloss.com. I am out of here. Peace.